What would you do if you picked up a stranger on a deserted road only to find out they were never really there at all? That question haunted me as I drove along the narrow, winding stretch of Route 66, the remnants of twilight fading into the kind of deep, ink-black night that feels more alive than real. I had heard the whispers about the young woman who appeared at the same spot every night, right by the old Sinclair gas station in Seligman, Arizona. They called her the Vanishing Hitchhiker, but to me, she was just another urban legend, until she wasn't. I had always dismissed the stories, the kind that sent shivers down your spine and made your heart race, told by locals at the diner who claimed she was trapped between worlds. She was last seen in a white dress, an old man had told me over coffee one morning, his voice trembling with conviction. And the ones who pick her up, they never come back the same. I rolled my eyes then, but now, behind the wheel of my rusted Chevy, I found myself gripped by a sense of foreboding. The road stretched endlessly before me, flanked by towering pines that whispered secrets in the wind. My name is Jake Thompson, a skeptic by nature, a journalist by trade, and a man haunted by his own past. I had lost my younger sister Emily in a car accident years ago, and despite the passage of time, her laughter still echoed in my mind like a ghost in a forgotten house. I had dedicated my career to uncovering the truth behind urban myths and paranormal phenomena, but the shadow of my sister's memory loomed large, often clouding my judgment. Maybe that's why I was drawn to this road and its mysteries. Perhaps I was searching for something I could never find. As I neared the gas station, the headlights of my car illuminated a figure standing at the roadside. She was draped in a white dress that fluttered in the breeze, her long hair cascading like a waterfall in the dim light. My heart raced, a mix of curiosity and dread bubbling within me. I slowed the car, wrestling with the voice in my head that warned me to drive on. But something compelled me forward, a need to understand, to uncover the truth behind this enigma. When I opened the door, she smiled, a hauntingly beautiful smile that sent chills down my spine. "Can you take me home?" she asked softly, her voice like a melody that danced on the edges of reality. I felt an inexplicable connection, a sense that her story intertwined with my own. But the moment I invited her into my car, I could sense the shift in the atmosphere. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of unsaid words and unasked questions. But as she settled into the passenger seat, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A flicker of movement in the trees, shadows that seemed to stretch and contort under the watchful gaze of the moon. I dismissed it as my imagination, a remnant of the chilling tales I had heard, yet a gnawing feeling tugged at me. I should have turned back. I should have known that picking her up was more than just an act of kindness. It was a step into the unknown. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As I pulled back onto the road, the young woman turned her gaze toward me, her expression a mix of gratitude and something deeper, something I couldn't quite place. "Thank you for stopping," she said, her voice a soft whisper that seemed to echo in the confines of the car. "It's been so long since I've been able to go home." "Where's home?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light, though unease gnawed at the edges of my mind. She hesitated, her gaze drifting out the window. "Just a little further down the road," she replied. "But there's something I need to show you first." My pulse quickened, a surge of apprehension coursing through me. What do you mean? I pressed, but before she could answer, the car jolted as if someone had slammed a fist against the hood. I slammed on the brakes, and we skidded to a halt. "What was that?" I asked, fear creeping into my voice. She looked at me, her eyes wide, and I could see a flicker of something. Was it fear in her expression? "It's not safe here," she said urgently. "We need to keep going." I nodded, but my mind raced with questions. How could this be happening? Was she real? I had always prided myself on my skepticism, but my instincts were screaming at me to turn back. Yet, as if caught in a web of fate, I pressed the gas pedal and we lurched forward. The road ahead twisted like a serpent, and with each passing moment, I felt the weight of darkness pressing in from all sides. The trees loomed like shadowy sentinels, their branches reaching out as if to claw at the car and drag us into the depths of the night. I glanced at her, and she seemed to be lost in thought, her expression distant, almost mournful. "Why are you out here?" I finally asked, trying to pierce through the tension that enveloped us. "What happened to you?" She turned to me, her gaze piercing through the haze of fear that clouded my mind. "I was looking for someone," she said slowly, her voice trembling. "Someone I lost." Before I could respond, the headlights illuminated a sign that read, "Welcome to Peach Springs." I felt a chill run down my spine. This was the last stop before the Grand Canyon, a place I had heard was haunted by those who had never returned from its depths. I had done my research. I knew the stories, but the reality of sitting next to a woman who seemed to belong to those tales was a different beast altogether. Just then, the car started to sputter, the engine groaning like a wounded animal. I pulled over to the side of the road, panic rising in my chest. "What's happening?" I shouted, my voice breaking. "It's okay," she said, but there was an edge to her tone that sent another shiver down my spine. "We just need to wait." "Wait for what?" I pressed, desperately seeking answers. Her gaze drifted to the trees again, and for a moment I thought I saw movement, shadows shifting in the periphery. My heart raced as the air grew colder, the night deepening around us. I felt a presence looming, something darker than the night itself. "Jake," she said suddenly, her voice low, "you need to understand. I'm not just lost. I'm here to help you find what you've been searching for." "What?" I asked, bewildered. "What do you mean?" But before she could respond, the shadows coalesced, forming into darker shapes that edged closer to the car. I could feel their weight pressing against my mind, pulling at the seams of my reality. As I turned back to her, I noticed a flicker of something, a hint of something I had seen before in the eyes of those grieving the lost. "Emily?" I whispered, the name escaping my lips as my heart sank. The realization crashed over me like a tidal wave. I wasn't just picking up a stranger, I was confronting my past. The young woman nodded slowly, her expression softening. "You have to let her go, Jake. Only then can you move forward." As the shadows danced menacingly at the edges of my vision, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me. And for the first time, I understood that the road ahead was more than just a journey. It was a reckoning. The name hung in the air like a specter, and a chill spread through my veins. Emily? I hadn't spoken her name in years, hadn't allowed myself to think about her since that night, the night everything shattered. I had buried her memory deep, encased it in a box I dared not open. And yet, here she was, alive in a way I could never quite grasp. Emily? I repeated, my voice trembling. But how? You... I never left, she interrupted softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Not really. You've carried me with you, haven't you? I opened my mouth to deny it, to insist I had moved on, but the truth was laid bare in her gaze. The weight of guilt and regret crashed over me, suffocating. I thought I lost you. I thought I could forget. You can't forget what you haven't faced, she said, her voice steady, yet laced with a haunting familiarity. And neither can I. Darkness swirled around us, and the shadows grew bolder, pressing closer against the car windows. I felt their cold breath, their whispers wrapping around my thoughts like a vice. I squeezed my eyes shut, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the memories, the laughter, the joy, and the unbearable weight of loss that had followed her departure. "Jake," she said, her voice cutting through my spiraling thoughts, "you need to confront what happened. You're not just here for me. You're here to face the truth." "What truth?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my tone. "What do you want from me?" The engine coughed and sputtered, the shadows shifting as if waiting for my next move. Emily's expression shifted from sadness to something resolute. The truth about that night. The truth about why I... Before she could finish, the car lurched violently, shaking us like a marionette caught in a tempest. The headlights flickered, illuminating a figure looming in the road ahead, an apparition draped in shadows, face obscured. My heart raced, and I instinctively reached for the door handle, but Emily's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. "Don't," she urged, her voice rising above the cacophony. "It's not what you think. You have to trust me." But trust felt like a distant memory, a fragile thread fraying at the edges. The silhouette in front of us stepped closer, revealing a familiar face, one I hadn't seen in so long it felt like a fever dream. My mind reeled. It was Mark, Emily's brother, the last person I expected to see. "Jake," he said, his voice a low growl, "you have no idea what you've unleashed." The air thickened, a palpable tension coiling around us as memories flooded back, memories of a devastating night. The argument, the accident, the secrets we had buried. I realized then that I wasn't just facing a ghost. I was standing on the precipice of a truth that could shatter the fragile illusion I had built for myself. "What do you know?" I demanded, but there was no answer, just the weight of the past looming over us, ready to pull me under. Emily's expression shifted again, no longer just a reflection of sadness, but a mirror of my own fears. "You need to face him, Jake. Only then will you understand." The shadows closed in, and I felt the ground beneath me begin to tremble. I was no longer just a passive participant in this unfolding nightmare. I was a crucial player in a game that had begun long before I had ever entered the scene. And as Mark stepped closer, I realized that unraveling this mystery would force me to confront not only the specters of my past, but the truths buried beneath my own heart. The night was just beginning, and I was in deeper than I ever imagined. The air crackled with electricity, and I could feel the weight of both Emily and Mark's presence bearing down on me. A storm brewed inside my chest, a tempest of unresolved emotions threatening to explode. "What did I unleash?" I demanded again, my voice rising, the panic clawing at my throat. Mark's face was a mask of fury and grief, his eyes dark as storm clouds. "You think you can just forget? You think you can walk away from what happened that night?" His voice trembled with restrained anger, and I knew He was reliving the same horrors I had tried so hard to bury. "You don't understand," I shouted, the words spilling from my lips like venom. "I was there. I didn't mean for any of it to happen." Mark stepped closer, the shadows dancing around him as if alive. "You think you're the only one haunted by that night? You think you're the only one who lost something? Enough!" Emily's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. "This isn't helping anyone. Jake, you have to confront your guilt. Mark, you need to let him speak." The silence that followed was deafening, the tension thick enough to choke on. I felt my heart racing, a drumbeat echoing the fear and regret pulsing through me. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice cracking, vulnerability spilling out like an open wound. "Face it, Jake!" Mark shouted, his voice raw with pain. "You need to face the truth about Emily's death. It's not just about what happened that night. It's about what you chose to do afterward." I recoiled, a knife twisting in my gut. "I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to lose her." "But you chose to run away." Mark's voice boomed, and I could see the hurt in his eyes, the betrayal that had festered between us. "You chose to hide. You let her memory rot while you pretended everything was fine." The shadows closed in, swirling like a tempest, and I felt as if I were drowning in my own guilt. "I didn't know how to face it," I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't know how to live with it." "Then face it now." Mark's voice softened, a glimmer of understanding breaking through his anger. "You owe it to her and to yourself." I took a shaky breath, the gravity of his words crashing down around me. Emily stepped forward, her eyes searching mine. "You can't run anymore, Jake. We're all still here, waiting for you to step into the light." In that moment, I felt the walls I had built around myself start to crack. I was terrified, but I knew I had to confront the truth. The night was dark, but I needed to find my way through. "Okay," I whispered, the word barely escaping my lips. "I'll do it." As I prepared to face the darkness, I could feel the weight of both Emily and Mark beside me, a strange alliance forged from grief and longing. The air crackled, and I knew that whatever awaited me would change everything. The moment I uttered that word, "okay," the air felt charged with a different kind of energy, a mix of dread and resolve. I could see Mark's expression shift from anger to something resembling hope, while Emily's gaze softened, urging me onward. We stood at the edge of a precipice, and I felt the ground shift beneath me as I took a step forward into the darkness that had long haunted me. The memories of that night rushed back, vivid and unrelenting. I could see the flash of headlights, hear the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal. I felt the weight of Emily's laughter, the warmth of her presence, and the cold reality of her absence. It was all there, swirling in a chaotic tempest. I closed my eyes, drawing a deep breath, and let it all wash over me. "Stop!" I yelled, as if commanding the memories to halt. "I can't." But the flood of emotions became a deluge, dragging me deeper into the abyss. I staggered, feeling the ground beneath me crumble, the shadows creeping closer. I was losing my grip, but then I heard Mark's voice, steady and grounding. "Jake, remember the good times. Remember her smile, not just the pain." His words cut through the chaos, and I latched onto them like a lifeline. I focused on Emily's face, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief, the way her laughter could light up the darkest room. Slowly, the storm within me began to calm. I opened my eyes, and instead of shadows, I saw them, Emily and Mark, standing resolutely beside me. Together, we faced the remnants of that night, and I finally felt a shift. But as the memories began to settle, I noticed something strange. A flicker in the air, a shimmering distortion that danced at the edges of my vision. I glanced at Mark, whose expression had darkened again, the shadows creeping back into the corners of his eyes. "What is that?" I asked, my heart racing once more. Emily turned toward the anomaly, her brow furrowing. "I don't know, but it feels familiar." As we stepped toward it, the flicker intensified, revealing glimpses of other moments, fragments of laughter, anger, and sorrow that didn't belong to us. I could hear echoes of voices, some comforting, others filled with rage. It was as if the night had opened a door to something far more complex than I'd ever imagined. "I thought we resolved this," I murmured, panic rising again. Mark shook his head, his expression grim. "We may have closed one chapter, but clearly there's more to this story. We need to figure out what we've unleashed." Emily stepped back, her gaze flicking between us and the shimmering portal. "And what about us? What does this mean for our futures?" I felt the weight of that question settle like a stone in my gut. The confrontation had shifted something within me, but it also left us standing on the brink of a new mystery, one that threatened to pull us deeper into the darkness we had just begun to confront. As the flickering light pulsed, I realized that while I had faced my past, it was only the beginning. I could feel the scars from that night etched into my soul, but I also sensed the possibility of healing and the weight of new burdens. "Then let's find out together," I said, glancing at Mark and Emily, who nodded in unison. We stood united, ready to face whatever lay ahead, the shadows still lurking, but no longer invincible. As we stepped toward the flickering light, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger journey, one that would intertwine our fates in ways we couldn't yet fathom. As we stepped closer to the shimmering portal, my heart thundered in my chest. I could feel the pull of whatever lay beyond, an insatiable hunger that beckoned us forward. But with each step, a chill crept into the air, wrapping around me like a shroud. It whispered to my deepest fears, the ones I had tried so hard to bury. Suddenly, the flicker exploded and we were engulfed in a blinding light. I reached out for Mark and Emily, but the light twisted, separating us, and I was thrown into a void. The chaos of voices surged around me, overwhelming and disorienting. I could hear Emily's voice calling for me, but it was drowned out by the cacophony of despair. Then, silence. I found myself in a dark, twisted version of our hometown, the streets eerily familiar yet distorted. Shadows danced at the periphery of my vision, whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. Panic clawed at my throat as I realized I was alone. I called out for Mark and Emily, but my voice echoed back, hollow and devoid of hope. Just then I spotted a flicker of movement, a figure standing at the end of the street, silhouetted against the flickering light. My heart raced as I approached, but as I drew closer, I froze. The figure was Emily, but her eyes were hollow, devoid of the warmth I cherished. "Jake," she said, her voice a haunting echo, "you shouldn't have come here. This place, it feeds on our fears." I stepped back, dread creeping into my bones. "What do you mean?" "Once you enter, there's no escaping the shadows. You'll become one of them." The shadows began to close in, their whispers growing louder, clawing at my sanity. I turned to flee, but the darkness consumed me, wrapping around my mind and heart, suffocating any remnants of light. My screams were swallowed by the void, and as I faded into the darkness, I realized with horror that I had become part of the very nightmare I sought to escape. The last thing I heard was Emily's voice, a chilling farewell. Welcome to your new reality. A shiver of terror coursed through me at the thought that I was trapped in an endless cycle of fear and despair, forever lost to the shadows. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.